Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of The X Button. I am one of your hosts, Alejandro, and with me is Superman Sons.
Paul, hey everybody.
How
I
you doing,
actually
Paul?
did this completely disconnected from what we were talking about earlier today, but
Yeah, in our chat.
I'll count it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For everyone that doesn't follow comic book news, Superman's son came out as bisexual in Tom Taylor's
Wild.
Superman comics. So just an FYI if you want to go check that out. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, way better now than I was this morning because this morning was ridiculous. Office-based jobs are designed to suck the soul out of your life.
Absolutely. And that's why I don't do office jobs anymore.
Drives me nuts. One thing that I don't know if we ever really talk about is what you actually do.
Yeah. I just manage, basically.
Really?
I just literally manage from home whenever on call and do errands for the fans. So yeah, it's like, and I don't even have to be like in an office. I used to do it in an office, but with this garbage times that we live in, we don't need to have to be in an office to stay safe. So
True.
And I'll be an Airbnb manager pretty soon. So
Ooh, okay, cool.
yes, finishing some projects there, waiting. And anything other than your stressful morning, Paul?
Well, we'll have a lot more to talk about on our next episode with what we've been playing, because I've been playing a lot of things, but I don't want to get into those because that's not what we're here for. Besides that, just having fun. All my family's birthdays are this month.
Ooh, so, they all got stacked in October.
Yeah, just yesterday this weekend we had one dinner, two dinners for birthdays and one regular birthday party that was around lunchtime. So there were three things just to handle for that, and we have basically my wife's brother and brother and stepdad, and I have my brother, mom, and dad all in October.
So they're all Halloween babies.
And her sister and her father.
When is your birthday, Paul? Yeah, I don't think I know that.
December 3rd.
Nice.
Yeah. So mine is
you're a Christmas baby
that received his birthday and Christmas gifts inside one, and we're like, this is both, and I'm like,
ooh, that sucks. That's like, I always feel bad for the December people because I know there's people that there's families that like to feel they were blessed to do 2 in 1, and that kind of sucks.
Sometimes I could leverage it because I would get a one larger gift rather than 2 smaller gifts. So I could sometimes leverage my way through like 2 games, or like I think I've gotten like full systems. I think my PC out of that. But I work at it. Last year my big TV. That was my big Christmas / birthday gift. So
and an overdue gift on top of that.
Yeah. Going back to try hooking up my parents' old Sharp Aquos 42-inch TV to watch The Mandalorian was a nightmare, because not only is it not a smart TV, it's barely a TV. It's like we were watching that sucker from across an entire room, and it's just like tiny, and I'm like, yeah, so you can't see it right now, but all these people in the back have Mandalorian helmets. Just trust me on that.
Is it that bad, really? Wow.
We actually could not tell that when Din was walking through the hallway initially in the second episode or whatever, that the whole rest of the crew was also Mandalorian. It wasn't until later that I got to see that with them, but it's fun watching that for the first time with them,
getting to experience it.
Yes, and
it's a really good show.
I was worried I would get bored seeing it for the 3rd time now, but I'm still like, yes.
Are you gonna keep watching it with them, or did you stop at those 3 episodes?
They don't watch anything by themselves, so I basically have to hold their hand and watch it with them.
I'd be interested to see what do you think of episodes 4, 5, and 6 rewatching them, because those to me are the weaker ones.
Oh, absolutely.
It then picks up in the last 2 in that first season. So
I think out of those 3, 6 is probably the strongest, 4 the second strongest, and 5 being the weakest.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking forward to that one, but we're watching them in groups of 3. with the only exception being the last 2 episodes we're gonna watch together. And I'm trying to like curate it well enough because the first 3 episodes are like a really solid movie by themselves. And then we're just gonna watch the next 3, get them out of the way, probably next couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, and then the last 2 are their own movie too.
Yeah,
so
they might as well be, and they're a little longer as well. So I'm really liking watching them react to it from more or less scratch. They knew a couple of details, but they're very not knowledgeable about like and what's going on. And all right, the Empire's gone, right? And I'm like, yes, Mom, the Empire's already gone. And they're like, but where does Finn show up? And I'm like, that don't even think about
that.
Yeah,
that's way later.
It's that whole conversation, but honestly, I get a kick out of it. So I live for like catching them up with anything Star Wars, anything Marvel, anything DC. And it's like, all right, welcome to my TED Talk. Here's what's happened for the last 5 years in the media industry.
I'm glad my parents are very in tune with the MCU. Like, and they actually rewatched all those movies by themselves back in quarantine when we were all separate. And I don't have to be doing the TED Talk, kind of like explaining, because that can drive me nuts sometimes.
My mom will rewatch some of them. Like, she loves the original Iron Man and she loves the Avengers movies and stuff, but my dad will not waste his time on any of it, and they all forget it the second they finish watching it anyway. But anyway, that's
some of them are pretty disposable. Yeah.
Have you been doing anything interesting?
Well, I went to do a health check last Friday, and some slightly concerning results. I got high cholesterol, so I need to get that crap down ASAP. So already taking supplements and cutting fat and grease to try to get cholesterol levels down, increasing more intensity to our hikes also. So I'm feeling hella tired right now because now I had been evading the actual climbs of the hike. I had gotten stuck in just doing like, the flat ones. You don't sweat as much, but today I was like, you know what, let's do this tall one. And I went on that tall one. I'm like, I barely have any breath now. But my shirt was sweaty.
Jeez.
I was sweating like a hooker in church.
Lord.
Yeah, so thanks Sully from Uncharted for that line. And but other than that, I'm just gonna be taking care of that. Thankfully, like, they told me that by having done that health check now, I'm at the point where I was like, you got it just in time to know that you were teetering before things start going bad for you. So hopefully I'm gonna be intensifying that, trying to get into some like more controlled eating and all of that. And I hope every week I'm starting to see the result, because I want to be healthy. I want to be alive. I want to reach my 50s. I want to reach my old age. I don't want to like be suffering too early. So hopefully that will work. And the good thing is that I usually don't like getting into diets, because if you're the only one doing it in a home when no one else is doing it, it's very hard. My parents are also going to try to do that, because also their health came in a little not too bad, but also at the point where it's like, it could be better. So being able to all coach each other and be like, we're all in this together, kind of eating the same things, that's going to help a lot. So and then other than that, just chilling, playing games. We did our Let's Plays that you can check out. We have done 2 so far. We're going to do 3. But at the end of 2, I asked Paul if he was going to be able to do it on Thursday. And that's when, that's usually his off day with his wife. And then on Friday, we were going to do it. But then I had to go do the health check because I was feeling weird the day before. And then I then went on workout in the afternoon, and then we ended up not playing. And then your weekend, you had your birthday. So potentially today we will do part 3, where we're now entering. But by the way, we're playing Halo Combat Evolved right now, and we've done the first 6 missions, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
We just finished 343 Guilty Spark, which was the Flood introduced mission. Yes.
So now we're starting the next one with the worst possible level, the library. So that should be fun.
Hopefully we get that out of the way, and then we get to the good stuff again.
Will I keep killing you with grenades?
Absolutely.
Maybe.
I'm just convinced that's gonna happen. So I'm gonna be looking over my shoulder every 3 seconds, like.
Yeah, I keep forgetting to shout frag out. It's exhausting doing that, especially because the gameplay loop of Halo is the 30-second loop of shooting melee grenades. So it's like it's part of the game design for you to always keep using those 3 things. So constantly saying that, I'm gonna run out of breath.
Right.
So,
and it's kind of my fault as well, because I like to play games as cinematically as possible. That means I'm gonna rush straight in, melee, swing, fire wildly, and throw grenades just to get something cool looking or funny out of it.
That's why you had such a bad time playing Stranger of Paradise, but I'll save that chat until the next one. So Paul, we got a bevy of news this week, thankfully, and I keep being thankful about us doing recaps on Mondays, because we don't miss anything from a previous week now. So we feast. Yes, we definitely feast, and we can chat about that. So press X
for some news.
All right, Paul, before I dive into the big news from this past week, I wanted to kind of separate some follow-ups from some of the things that we talked last week.
Okay.
The GTA remasters, once again. Now, the GTA remasters have finally been confirmed by Rockstar, which hilariously were leaked by their own PC launcher before they were like, F it, we're saying it now.
Yep.
Officially named Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy - Definitive Edition. I'm only going to call them GTA remasters. F that name. The trio of Rockstar classics is going to give the games a cleaner, modern makeover, and it's been released as a commemoration of GTA 3's 20th anniversary this year. GTA, Metal Gear Solid 2, and Halo 1 are 20 years old this year. Can you believe that? Nothing will date you more than hitting that milestone. However, as an addendum to when the games were supposed to come out, based on the South Korean rating suggesting a shift to 2022 for all platforms that we read in the previous episode, Rockstar said this trilogy is coming up later this year without confirming a solid release date. In case this thing is coming in hot, expect the trilogy to be released no later than December.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is the Cyberpunk / Halo Infinite / Immortal / Far Cry 3 / Rainbow Six Siege, kind of getting it in right at the nick of time, if it ends up happening. Yeah. As an aside, the existence of this remaster also means that Rockstar announced they're planning on removing any old version of these games currently available on digital services.
Oh, they're gonna do that route. Oh.
Yeah, so in case you want to keep a digital version of the games in their classic form, so the trilogy of games are available as PS2 classics on PlayStation right now. Go buy them now. Just in case you think that the remaster is gonna maybe mess up what you think, you should buy them now, because they're gonna apparently want to try to force this new remaster as like the only way to play them.
Doing a George Lucas special edition now.
Yes. And to me, it's like, that's buyer beware for me, because those games don't hold up well, like control wise right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you you lock on with R1 and shoot with circle in one of them. So it's like it was until GTA 4 that they started to feel a little bit more modern. So I'll be curious what people say whenever these release, and if they modernize controls or not, because if they do that, then fair game. Take the old ones out. I mean, unless you just want to be a purist.
That's my biggest statement, because like one reason is, of course, you can control the kind of controversialness in certain things, say stuff that didn't age very well. You can kind of remove it or kind of censor it. Gives you full control over what your brand is now putting out there. Other problem, of course, is controls, because I tried going back to some of those. San Andreas is probably my biggest example that I can remember, and I couldn't get past like the first couple missions, because I was just like, this isn't fun.
The bike section.
And I tried playing it on PC, where the controls were still in like their initial forms, so I'm like, what button do I hit on PC? And I just couldn't get past it, even with like the possibility of awesome mods and stuff. I was just like, I'm not dealing with this. Anyway, I'm mixed, I think, on this. I like the idea that they're just gonna like, hey, we're just gonna put this back out there. The problem is they're probably just going to control the heck out of the pricing, and they're going to try gouging us.
Oh yeah, their rumors is that the next gen versions are going to be $70 for all 3 of these. So,
gosh, I'm not buying that.
Yeah,
I'm
it's a
gonna wait till
sale.
that's like $15 or something. But yeah,
I might buy it at like a first sale if the work they did is worth it. Because that's the thing. We haven't seen gameplay. We haven't seen video of this. The way they announced it was they're doing a bunch of the still images, kind of up rest, that were like in the covers. So
right.
it's definitely it's just wait and see to see what kind of work they did. If the work is minimal, hell no. So
right.
So yeah, what else? Were you gonna say something else?
No, that was just about it. Just like you mentioned that if they put in work and it looks nice, better textures or whatever, then like maybe. But if it's just like, oh, it's now in like 4K, but it's literally just the same thing, then I'm like, get this out of my face. So go ahead. What you were gonna say?
Yeah, the era of the lazy remaster is kind of done. So and following up for also one of the stories from last week, following last week's report from BGC about the Konami resurgence and the potential Metal Gear Solid 3 remake from Virtuos, BGC reports one of Virtuos employees did confirm they're working on a big, high-budget remake without explicitly saying what game. You can basically connect the dots. BGC's reporting has been solid, so by them, solid. And if someone said they're working on a remake, it's like it's pretty much confirmed. So can't wait to see it. Hopefully it has the quality of the pachinko machine cutscenes.
But then, like, dude, if they can put the story of 3 with the gameplay of 5, I am sold.
That would and the story is the same. Sold. And if the story is the same, I tell you, that's gonna be one of the greatest games of all time.
Oh,
because
my gosh.
3 is that.
Give us like a full jungle, like SOCOM Navy SEAL style to slither through. I would deal with a 2-week boss battle with that old man sniper if we got something like that.
Oh man, that's such a great boss fight. Then especially how you can cheese it. Do you know that you can kill him before the boss fight? Like if he's in his wheelchair and you shoot him, like when the first cutscene that he pops up.
Yes, and then his wheelchair like explodes and flies at you. Yeah,
flies at you. It's so fun.
That, and then you can also kill him by moving forward your game clock. I never did that because I always thought that was like cheating, but
it's so cool. It's like that's I think the roots of Kojima adding a lot of variety and sandboxy elements into something was teased there in the end battle, just in how many ways you can approach it. True. So man, being able to like play that with like modern controls and being able to crouch walk, the thing they added on Metal Gear Solid 4, that just doing that is gonna fix so much of like what ails some of that gameplay. So moving on now to the real stories of this week. Number 1, the gaming industry has been plagued in recent years over the abundance of crunch and long hours plaguing game development, with many studios vowing to do better with work hours while others don't change a thing. Look at Naughty Dog. Last week, a notable studio has announced a massive shakeup to their studio's work hours, with former Deus Ex and now Guardians of the Galaxy developer Eidos Montreal announcing they are adopting the 4-day work week mantra that you see in some places like in Europe, with the studio capping itself at 32 hours a week, citing the desire to increase the studio's efficiency without compromising their employees' well-being. You can read a bunch of that stuff, like what other things are changing, like cutting off team meetings and all of that at their FAQ that they release with all this. Here's the best part. Salaries are not going to be reduced to accommodate the new schedule. How this will now impact Eidos game development remains to be seen. Paul, you live in the capitalistic nation that is the United States that squeezes you out of, of all the work. What do you think of a studio up in Montreal like adopting the 4-day work week?
I'm going to start off by saying it's fantastic. I, being a business major myself, I've gotten very close proximity to this exact work week that has killed so many, not just companies, but people, literally and figuratively, along with their lives. And I know you have also experienced a lot of that as well. My thoughts on this: I really hope this starts a new trend, because so many people are so obsessed with the concept of the hours equaling work put into something, and that's not what it means. What you're doing when you're adding like 60 to 100 hour work weeks is it's like you're trying to wring out a sponge, and you're just putting too much in there. You're trying to brute force your way through something when I like the phrase that says hire a lazy person because they're going to find the most efficient way to do something. I am one of those people. If I can find a more efficient way to give myself free time, I will. But I'm also going to get the work done by doing that. So what we need is people doing stuff like this, where it's 4 days and 32-hour work weeks. What they're going to do is they're going to find more efficient ways to do the things that they're currently doing right now. Maybe at first it may take a little while because it's an adjustment. That's just what happens when you change policies. That's not even related to it. What I fear is that people are going to see that initial drop in productivity and think, oh, it doesn't work, we're just going to switch back, or everybody else is going to double down on their previous models. But what I really want to happen is for Eidos Montreal to start this, commit to it, actually show progress, and that not just the progress of the company, but that their people are happier, there's less turnover, there's less burnout, their families are happier as well, and as you said as well, their salaries are not being touched. So if this helps like a positive and less toxic process, I really want other people to take over this whole new method and have things change for the better for the gaming industry and hopefully a lot of our capitalistic nature in this country.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
I think what's interesting is that all of this came out because they saw some efficiency while they were all working from home. They adjusted expected hours while
so
everyone
it's already
was.
because of that.
Yeah, and they noticed like their employees were happier with a more adjusted schedule. Obviously, when you're home, expecting the same amount of work that you would be expected to have while in an office space can be a little harder because there's like the lack of camaraderie with each other as you're working together. You're at home with your family, so you kind of have to keep in mind you don't want to take the family that's within your vicinity seeing you work, and that kind of helps because that usually some of the people that cite burnout in the gaming industry is how much sometimes they have to crunch and put in just the amount of hours beyond what's like expected from them because they just kind of want to get the work done, and it just leads to divorces, like complete mental health shattering. Like read some of Jason Schreier's reporting he did over like some big travel developments like Dragon Age Inquisition, Anthem, Mass Effect Andromeda, the old Bioware games, or even the story of the development of Uncharted 4, that game went through 3 years worth of development hell in 1 year to try to get that game out over all the trouble they had going. And one of the things that sometimes can be lost with the whole crunch thing is that in the art industry, it's very hard for you to sometimes get art done if you don't want to put like your all, because it's like something that's really passionate, like you're really passionate about something here. So what I do like about this is that at least the company, by capping the week like this, they're allowing they show that they're not the ones pushing for crunch. If anyone then wants to stay in and finish up more and more, that's not on the company, because the company is literally now giving them the out of like, you have a 3-day week, 3 days to rest.
Yeah.
Just work the other 4. I think that's what's cool. What I'm more interested now though is will this make will this impact Eidos Montreal ability to put out games quicker if you're cutting off that 1 day? But if all this did is like cut up on, because they're saying they're cutting off hour-long meetings that they would have weekly to probably 30 minutes, like Q&A sections, all of that. They're like they're pursuing efficiency here. So
because it doesn't sound like they're just one-to-one cutting a day and saying, all right, let's move on. They're, like you said, they're cutting unnecessary meetings. They're allowing for certain things. And one thing I did want to mention before you jumped in as well is when like the brain is always problem solving, whether or not you're working. The fact that they're able to give people 3 days rather than 2 to like rest, recover, and problem solve everything that they've been dealing with means that they're going to be fresher and be able to implement the things that they've been thinking about over that 3 days better than what we've seen from a lot of information mental health wise about 2 days not being enough for you to reset your body.
Exactly.
But yeah, you can continue.
In Europe, like I don't know where in Europe, but I have heard a majority of places in Europe have adopted the 4-day work, 3-day rest, and it has worked beautifully for them over there. So we'll see. Hopefully, this is like again the bastion of how things are done. But then the proof will be like Wednesday. Guardians of the Galaxy is coming out in like 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. So
I thought it was already out.
No, Guardians of the Galaxy comes out on October 26th.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know why I thought it was September.
No, it was also, and it's gonna make its date.
Okay,
This has just been announced. So the result of Guardians of the Galaxy, whatever that game ends up being, you can't attribute this change to that game right now. You have to attribute it to what comes next.
Yeah.
If what comes out next turns out good, let's see. I'm hoping this Guardians game comes out good. And
I hope so as well.
and then and because they haven't released a dud, like Deus Ex Mankind Divided, good. It was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't the greatest, but it was good.
Yeah,
that's
fair.
Shadow of the Tomb Raider was good. Maybe not as good as Rise of the Tomb Raider, but it was a good game.
True.
So
Yeah.
if they can still maintain a quality of good, maybe not like the very, very best, then maybe this will be worth it. We'll see.
Looking forward to it.
Number 2, Capcom has apparently decided to make the PC platform their focus platform moving forward. According to Video Games Chronicle, Capcom came to this decision because of their recent sales success on PC, with continuous sales from their most recent offerings even years past their original release. Think Resident Evil 7 and how long ago that was. And apparently that game has kept selling on PC. While this doesn't mean they're leaving consoles behind, it only means PC versions of games are going to receive more time and attention before trickling down to consoles now. Still interesting to see a prominent Japanese developer making this claim after being so entrenched, mainly on consoles and handhelds. What do you think of this?
This is very surprising to me, honestly. But I mean, I guess if you were reading the writing on the wall, it would make more sense. And I mean, just like you said, we're citing the sales of previous games still doing so well on PC is surprising to say the least. But like, who's out here still buying Resident Evil 7 on PC of all things? Like, I don't know what the deal is with that, but I think there's got to be a lot of correlation with deep sales and easy stuff to deal with on that. I mean, what was it? Vanquish was there was Platinum, but isn't that published by Capcom, or am I mistaken?
No, that was Sega. Sega did Vanquish.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking a lot of the other things that Capcom's been doing lately, I mean, Resident Evil and all the other things
Monster Hunter.
they've been doing. Yeah, Monster Hunter alone. Capcom's been crushing it with their recent releases just across the board being great for whoever's been looking for them. And I am, even though I haven't really bought into most of it besides like Resident Evil and I bought Monster Hunter World back when that came out, but I'm really proud of them for doing what they're doing right now, and I hope that they continue to do what they're doing.
Capcom, Capcom is last generation's greatest comeback story. This was a studio that near the end of the PS3 and 360 generation were just putting turds, like absolute turds. Think like Lost Planet 3, Resident Evil 6.
I was just thinking about it too.
Yeah, like
I wouldn't mind if they reinvigorated Lost Planet.
Yeah, because the first one was so good, and then that series just went down the shitter, and with 2 and 3, and just think about Capcom. Then after they released so many bad games, the initial like 3 years of that generation, they only put out Dead Rising 3 as an Xbox exclusive, and then also Dead Rising 4 almost 3 years later. And then from there on out, they were just a port studio. They were re-releasing the Resident Evil games. They were like, they remade their remake. The Resident Evil 1 remake was remade, and putting out like Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. It was like they were just they were just coasting by, being lazy. It wasn't until RD7 came out that it was like an original new entry, completely different, and then they went back to DMC with DMC 5, because you even remember like the DMC reimagining that
struggling after that.
It was like that wasn't even them, that was Ninja Theory. They just like licensed the IP to them. They didn't even make that game, so they were just struggling. And then from Resident Evil 7 onwards, like DMC 5, Monster Hunter World, RE8, the RE2 remake, RE3 remake, and them actually putting
Resident
so much
Evil
work.
4 VR now.
Yeah, so it's like Mega Man 11, Monster Hunter
Oh, I
Rise.
forgot about that.
Monster Hunter Rise was a big game for the Switch this year. That also has a PC version, interestingly, but not other consoles. So it's like you can cross save between a PC version and a Switch version, which is interesting. It's I would say, like, even though this may seem doom and gloom, here's the reality, Paul. Every game that's made is a PC game, no matter what. These new machines, like, yes, they have their SSD, blah 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 blah. They're PCs. Since the PS4 generation onwards, like, everything now is like a PC. So now they're just basically making sure that the PC version is the best it can be, because there has been rough PC versions of things. So some PC versions not running well, not being compatible with the million permutation of PCs that are out there, because you have to code things really well for them to run. Just, think about recently Deathloop. On PS5 it was excellent. On PC it was atrocious, apparently. So it's very hard to get a PC version right.
And I would dare say that if you want a series to last long enough, your most important thing is to make it run well on a PC. Because when you think about it, it doesn't really matter what console something comes out on. It's eventually, it needs to find its way to PC if it's going to last for very long.
Look at Halo. Halo now is like booming again, especially Halo 3 when it came out to PC. When it came out on PC, it's like, I feel the PC is now the ideal platform for game preservation in a way. Yeah, because just look at the disaster that has been PlayStation with game preservation. We're gonna talk about that later. That, and compare that to how everything that you have out in PC over PC, especially on Steam, when Steam became a thing. And your library just keeps expanding and expanding, and then you get a better specs. If you build your PC, there's a chance for you to play those games better. It's a big adjustment, I will say. It's a big it's an expensive undertaking. That's the only problem. But the thing is that the rewards with how good some games can look, how great they can run, like the ability for you to have everything together. I can see what Capcom's thinking here. So
I could even say, like, if you even want to go the pirating route, what better way keeps series alive is emulation. And if you want something to run well, if it runs well in emulation, it's more likely people are going to want to go out and buy it. Because a lot of people, I mean, I know we talk about the whole idea of, pirating ruins industries and stuff, but in the end, if you really love something, people have that natural desire to go out and pay once they realize something's good.
I'm not against emulation at all if it's things that have been discontinued, like emulation.
That's another thing.
Emulation, I think, is the only way for some games to be alive. Like, that's why, like, to me, I have been following very closely the development of the PS3 emulation that has taken years to get right and running well, because the PS3 was a disaster of a console. Terrible. It's so intrinsically designed within itself that it's not compatible with the normal way someone would build a machine. And people have put some work into that thing. Like, I always keep track of how the Metal Gear Solid 4 emulation's going there, because again, that game's stranded on PS3 and now it's looking better. And that's why I'm glad Capcom is kind of taking this, because I just know that they're not gonna abandon consoles in a way. This will just make it easier for them to just trickle down, be like, okay, now let's scale this game now to what the specs of the Xbox Series X and the PS5 are. And if they still want to keep supporting the old decrepit consoles now, we can try to scale this one even lower for PS4 and Xbox One. They did that with RE8. So
I never would have thought companies like Capcom and Konami would be leading in bringing back old series that had recently been thought just never coming back.
Yeah, and I bet you Konami looks at Capcom, and that's probably what's inspiring them. The thing is that the problem is that Konami has been missing with the quality. I mean, look at
very much so.
eFootball continues to be an amazing meme factory. Do you see the Naruto run?
No, I just watched a couple highlights of people like popping in and out, getting goals and like jumping on an invisible body and just weird stuff like that. But I guess I was more referring to the collections that they've been releasing
Yes.
lately.
Oh yeah.
Just being so solid. And like, I actually went and do some research into how people have been thinking about this recent Castlevania Advanced Collection, and
People like it.
they're like across the board are like, this is fantastic. I'm really glad that I got this, because like I used to play these and now they feel fresh and all that stuff. But I mean, then you have somebody like me who used to be, or still is directionally challenged, and
You're
I
getting
could
better
still
at Metroidvanias
make it
now, right?
through those games. And then like I felt an addiction to be like, well, I'm not really doing anything, let me boot up Circle of the Moon, see what happens. And then I just like blast through this entire area. And I actually felt smart a couple of times by figuring out something that they wanted me to know that I didn't have to look up. And I was like, I actually figured this out. I figured out how this boss mentality is going on, his moveset, that I feel like I haven't been able to do that in years, honestly, because I'm a bit of an idiot.
If you want to like get better at direction, like Metroidvania is the greatest tool. Master that genre, you'll master everything, and how to like properly not get too lost and really pay attention to your environment. So yeah, Capcom, wishing you well with this new PC venture, because at least your PC versions have been good.
Amen.
Number 3, in the other side, like speaking of companies that are not doing well because they're not done being the most tone-deaf gaming company of 2021, Ubisoft has announced another free-to-play game, now in the form of Ghost Recon Frontline, a game that takes their once venerable series into the tired, and I keep re-emphasizing that, tired battle royale genre. This marks now the 3rd free-to-play game announcement this year based on one of their existing core franchises. The first one was The Division Heartland back in May. Then Tom Clancy's X-Defiant that was announced in July. And now this one, Ghost Recon Frontline. And just so you know how people feel about this new game, its reveal trailer already has amassed 13,000 dislikes, with X-Defiant reveal trailer having 30k dislikes. Note that The Division Heartline doesn't have a proper reveal trailer yet, despite being announced technically first.
I have one previous question. Do we know if YouTube's still getting rid of dislikes on their videos?
You can see that dislikes plaster there still.
Or like, are they going to try to get rid of them at some point? I know they were going to.
They probably will, with seeing how people are making their feelings clear with this thing.
Yeah, because it's moments like this that I feel a little happy that we have dislikes, because it makes it very clear to the people that are posting it when something's wrong.
When it's not what people want.
Yes.
No one's going to Ubisoft's door and be like, hey, that Ghost Recon game, can you make a battle royale, please? Hey, can you grab all the Tom Clancy characters and put them in a hero shooter that looks like Call of Duty? Hey, Division Heartland, like, yeah, you have the Division 2 over there, but can you release something just like completely separate from the thing that you already have there? It's like, I am honestly astounded, like with capital A, how a company can just miss the mark and completely ignore their fan base over and over and over again. Happened in that with that company. I'm sorry, like, I like Ubisoft, or I used to really like them. I like what they used to put. They used to be the third party from like the big 3 that I championed the most, because they would pursue the actual variety. Yeah, and they had all those different franchises, and they like, even they were the first ones to go down the games as a service hole, but they were also one of the few that showed that if you took time to get it right, despite not launching well, then your series will just sprout and become big hits. Look at Rainbow Six Siege. That game was bad when it launched. They had a bunch of bad stuff, and it's one of their biggest successes because they kept at it. They kept tuning it. The Division, also another game that didn't launch well because that's looters. For Honor, another one, but they kept at them and they kept making them better. But now they're like, I feel they're probably gonna go under. They're this desperate at pursuing the free-to-play market. I think that's a really worrying sign because
I'm concerned for sure. I agree. I have one little ray of hope that I want to point out that I really hope I'm right, is that all of these were made around the same time before our boy got fired.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as we know, like, he got fired and then they said they were going to start going in a different direction because his direction was the same game.
Homogenization with everything.
I want to believe that all of these were born through that, and they're thinking, okay, well, we got that kicked out. We're going, like, we still put a lot of effort and money into this, and Ubisoft is just sitting on money, maybe. So they're like, we're just going to throw these out there, let them fail or succeed, because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take and all that. So, like, hey, maybe we'll make a little money on them and not sink our cost. And then we'll move on after this wave is out with more things with the new creative director. That's what I'm hoping.
You have a good point, because game development takes time. Even a battle royale. Like, think
At
about
least, like, 3 years roughly.
Yeah, so, like, just to give an example, think about Apex Legends.
Yeah.
Respawn said that game started development around March 2017 when they played PUBG and thought, this is interesting. What could we do if we try to put this in our universe? Took them around 2 years.
Yeah.
To get the thing in a proper shape where they can show it. And they also had the advantage that they showed and released it immediately. And now I'm realizing that that's probably the way to go with this battle royales. You can't announce something in a genre everyone says is so tired, to the point where you even see the big mainstays of the battle royale genre, like experimenting with different modes. That's not the core thing. That's what people are playing within it. I see my brother, he doesn't like playing the normal battle royale mode anymore, and he plays competitively. He's like in tournaments and all of that. People are just tired of this, and it just feels like this trend chasing that's coming a little too late when everyone's just started. It's kind of like the trend chasing of the looter genre. Everyone saw Destiny take off, even though it had its problems, but it made money, it took off and all that. But it's a very hard genre to always consistently get right. Then you receive all these games years down the line when everyone had already moved on from the looters in a way. So it's like, this is how this feels, that this was all green lit in that 2019, 2020 window. Gascode got fired or left / whatever, however it was, back in July 2020 when all of the shit hit the fan for Activision. So I can see that's how it happened, because you don't push this, like, especially knowing how game development is. So there's a ray of hope and crossing fingers that maybe it's like, I just hope all 3 of these games, with probably Division Heartland is the only one that I kind of want to see first, because one thing I did read, and because I heard that the Division fan base wasn't too up in arms in that one, is like, there was a mode in the first Division that came as DLC that they added as survival mode that made the game actually really fun and interesting, that was different from its normal gameplay that people dug. They didn't bring that back in Division 2. Now they made it its own thing. So that's one that I kind of want to wait and see. But X Defiant, it's like the most crude, generic thing in the world. Like Ghost Recon Frontline
just gives you everything you need to know.
Exactly. The title and this Ghost Recon game, like, when you look, it's a first-person battle royale thing, but it's like, how many of those we have already? And one that's just dominating with Call of Duty Warzone right now. And it's like, it doesn't look any different from anything I've ever seen. It's like, this Ghost Recon used to be the tactical stealth game. Rainbow Six was the tactical shooter. It's like, if Ghost Recon was all about like sneaking in, like properly aim, properly consider everything. And that, I don't think that's gonna translate to a 100-person battle royale. It's just insanity. And let's not forget, our dear Assassin's Creed is becoming a live service. That's why we're not gonna see it for the next few years now. But Valhalla will keep getting DLC support, for good or ill. Fuck Ubisoft. Number 4, Sony is testing the idea of game trials in PS5 soon. For those in the UK, they have noted that both Death Stranding Director Scott and Sackboy, a big adventure, now give the option for people to download and try a game for 6 hours before it locks out and asks for full payment to continue. with the 6-hour timer hilariously beginning as soon as you start downloading the game, FYI. If Sony moves fully forward with this idea, it will actually be the second time they've given trials for games in their service, having tried something similar via PS Plus late in the PS3's life cycle before completely abandoning the concept during the PS4 era. Paul, would you love trying a game, but then you have to download it, but then the timer starts right then, and then by the time the game fully downloads, you're done, you're out of time?
It's I imagine it like this. They had such a fantastic idea, and I picture the Vince McMahon meme where it's like Sony announces the second attempt at game trials, and he's like, Death Stranding director's cut, Sackboy Big Adventure, 6 hours, and then it's like counted the second you start downloading the game, because as y'all know, these games take a very long time to download, and so I have like the god tier internet that would allow me to do something like that and have maybe half that amount of time, depending on what game it was. Maybe like I'd actually give it a little more generous and say I'd have like a solid 4, maybe 5 hours for some of those games. But for most people, that is not going to happen.
No, not at all. It's like not everyone has fast internet everywhere in the world. That's just fact. I could barely squeeze 200 megabyte download. We just upgraded for 200 megabyte here in El Salvador. Just give it an idea. So it's like this trial should be as soon as you start play. Kind of like if you rent something in Amazon, the timer starts as soon as you start play. You can rent something and kind of keep it there, but you have a 48-hour period to actually watch it. Regardless how you want to use it, it's a 48.
I want to point out is that they chose Death Stranding, the cinematic game that has 30+ minute cutscenes, for one of the things you could do. Not only is it huge, not only do you only get 6 hours with it, but then you start up Death Stranding before you even play. You're going to have maybe 30 minutes left. Maybe.
Right. I tell you, it's like
you're gonna get to walk with the corpse like 10 feet, and it's gonna go, "Hey, buddy, you ready to finish up and pay for the rest of this game?"
Yes, and that's what I say. Like, I think 6 hours is a good sample to try Death Stranding if the counter starts at play.
Yes,
because that's a game that I feel it's brilliant that they would test it with that game because it's so weird, and it may look boring just watching videos, but it's different when you're playing. That was always my concern when I saw all the demos leading into the release in 2019. I was like, this is delivery mail simulator 2019.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Kojima, but will I be able to? And it's when you have controller in hand and see like, oh my God, this is really interesting how like he gamified traversal.
Yeah.
And especially and the game really clicks when you start building stuff. So, but it's a bunch of hours in. But if the timer starts, literally when you start downloading, not taking into account that anyone's download speed is completely different, like I feel it is like that game's cutscene heavy early on. You won't be able to get to play anything. That's going to be a bad impression if you have bad internet, if you only have a few time left to play.
Oh, yeah.
And that would backfire. So I like the idea, but Sony is very particular and always having good ideas and bungling the execution so badly. So no surprise there. And speaking of Sony bungling, number 5, earlier this year, Sony announced they were planning to completely shut down the PS3 and PS Vita stores for good and eliminating any way to purchase content on legacy hardware. After massive fan backlash, and I say massive, over the total disrespect of their legacy content, they backtracked and allowed the store to remain open for now. However, if you think this means they still don't intend on eventually killing these stores, their recent announcement they're eliminating the ability for you to directly purchase anything in those stores with a credit or debit card or even PayPal should tell you what's in store for the future of these stores, which means it's on its way out. Yeah. If you're planning on buying anything, in these systems right now. Like once this goes into effect, you can only buy anything by buying digital codes that you can still put in redeem codes in the store, or adding funds to your wallet on a PS4 or PS5, and I think through account management on website. I could be mistaken. I will just add to this. This wouldn't be a problem of concern if they would actually figure out how to actually make backwards compatibility a thing. This is why this is concerning.
Let no one think that we're a Sony fanboy podcast, because this is ridiculously stupid.
It's stupid.
It's like they want to sneak through the loophole that they've created themselves, where they said, oh, we're shutting it down, nobody uses it anyway, and they're like, no, we really do. Also, there's a lot of stuff that you just still haven't been able to take off. You have to make that available to people. We just finished talking about the idea of emulation only existing as a necessity because these companies keep shutting down methods to get access to classic games. That is literal history. That is hundreds and thousands of hours of work.
Your legacy. It's your legacy.
Your own legacy. Your own series that are just being stuck on an island, and then you're just leaving it to never come back. And when the fans are caring more about their own IPs, that's a problem. I mean, we've talked about it with Nintendo having the problem. I would say, just as much as we joke about it, I feel like most of the time Microsoft cares about their own IPs. If they had it, they want to keep it there. Whether or not they just beat the dead horse or not, at least they have it around. But then you have Sony and Nintendo, which feel perfectly fine just shoving it off.
Microsoft can literally say tomorrow, we're shutting down the Xbox 360 store and you can buy games on an Xbox 360. But guess what? Those games are backwards compatible.
Yeah.
Over there.
You can buy and play like all of it on Xbox One and probably most of them on PC by now anyway. So, like, I would think that the biggest problem with this is, I remember going through the PS3 era and finding all these amazing things, and like Alejandro said earlier, the fact that we are missing out on so many big things. Even Metal Gear Solid 4, one of the greatest PS3 games of all time, one of the greatest games in general of all time, with one of the greatest endings to a series. The fact that it's still stuck on PlayStation 3 is a problem.
And you can only play it with PS Now with awful lag and grimy look because it's a streaming game. So it's
exactly. So when they seem so flippant about removing abilities for people to do something, I mean, if they don't want us to complain about losing access to the PlayStation 3 and the PS Vita's store, fix emulation. Fix the ability to put things on PlayStation 4 and 5, and we'll stop complaining.
Here's what's funny. Do you know that the way the Xbox One did backwards compatibility is that they figured out emulation within a system that was not designed for it. They figured it out.
Not even a thing. Or why is that not more of a thing? Because like, if emulation's so good, especially with these current systems basically being PCs, you'd think they would hire people that do emulation to learn how it works for their own systems. So yeah, it doesn't really matter how you get the game working as long as it works on the system. Consumer doesn't care. And you can literally get people to pay for a game that doesn't that only works on your system through an emulator. They don't care. They'll throw you $5, $10, $15, $20 depending on how much they love this game. It feels like free money. It feels like a slam dunk, and for whatever reason, these companies still don't seem to follow along with it.
At least one of them does. The one that lost last generation. But their work is exemplary. Like literally, I wasn't joking. Like, they could literally announce right now, after we finish recording this, that they're like, if you have an Xbox 360, you won't be able to buy anything anymore there. But no one would bat an eye because they already made the work so that in their current hardware, you can still experience a bunch of those games that they put in backwards compatibility that were not held back by licensing nightmare. Like, obviously there's a bunch of like licensed games from that era that are not available because of licensing is such a bitch in every way
You
possible.
kind of can't get them on the original hardware anyway,
Mhm,
unless
exactly, because they
really
already
upgrade.
unless you go move heaven and earth and someone has a copy that they no longer want. And yeah, it's like the PS3 will always be an albatross, the scarlet letter on Sony, for having done, for in their own hubris, having done a system that was so hard to develop for, that it made every game that was multi-platform always run or look worse there until a certain point. Took developers almost an entire generation to feel comfortable at putting out a PS3 version that wasn't leaps and bounds worse than the 360 generation. I talked about it in our topic from last week. It's like, yeah, I switched to play on PS3 because of the mistake of where my father bought Call of Duty for Modern Warfare, and it was rough. Always have to be crossing fingers that in every game that came to both platforms, it was gonna at least be functional on the PS3. I mean, the PS3 eventually reached its nadir with Skyrim. Skyrim PS3 is legendarily like awful. Yeah. It was like so bad. Literally, it was so freaking bad that the basis of the PS4 was like they had Skyrim. They literally, you can, Mark Cerny was like, the experience that happened with Skyrim is why we designed the PS4 this way. We could no longer do this bespoke.
Really?
Yeah, they couldn't no longer do this bespoke shit that they were doing with the PS3 with Supercell processor and all this different like thing. It was like a complete nightmare to develop for. It's like the only way that you could ring out two versions of the same game in 360 and PS3 that looked similar is if you started development on PS3 and then moved to 360. The other way around, it was never gonna work. And because the 360 was the mostly dominant console that generation until the very end, the PS3 overpassed it when it didn't matter. Devs would, it's kind of like we're talking with PC, they would go where the numbers are. They would put the money where it was going to be easier for the return of investment, and screw PS3. Like, yeah, people, if they want to buy it there, it's going to be there, but here's where we're playing now. So, and I figured the PS3 is such a disaster dev-wise that Sony see that it's going to be such a tough way to properly emulate. And they're probably looking at these dudes doing the emulator over on PC, how long it's taking them to get it right. And that's why they're like, that's okay. But it sucks that most of PlayStation's most memorable games came in PS3. So, damn, Sony, it's an absolute shame.
I'm really hoping that we have more breakthroughs in emulation, and if I can play all these PlayStation 3 games on PC, then I will. Yeah, to me,
as long as you can get out of the PS3 a way for you to play Heavenly Sword, the original Killzones, Infamous, Resistance, even so, Jak and Daxter is technically in PS4, but the version is not an HD version, like it came out on PS3. Take those out, and then maybe I would be more okay with the PS3 closing, because obviously we got the news that Konami may bring the already released Metal Gears as remasters. So it's like, that would be a good way because that's the way, if that's what's needed to get those games like on PlayStation now on modern hardware, there's like, okay, as long as those games, you can play them now, not on PS Now, because God knows, like, experience varies wildly there if you're just playing on PS3 games there. But if they had figured this out, they could have announced the shutting off of the stores and no one would have bet an eye on, because they never figured it out and they will always have to carry this forever. Final story, also Sony. Apparently Sony is planning on announcing a big remake around Christmas time, according to Irish singer Ava McMahon, who only goes by the music name Ava. Some music she recorded is going to be purposed for this upcoming remake. She said that very flippantly. Oh yeah, I recorded music that's going to be in the for a remake they're making. And they'll probably announce it later this year, so Christmas. What will this remake be? No one knows. It is to be noted that the Game Awards always happen in December. So that's always the E3 for December every year. So if this remake were to be revealed, it's likely to appear at Jeff Keighley's show. What could it be? Put tinfoil hats on. I don't know what it could be. I'm like completely like,
I don't even really want to make any claims about it. I don't know who the lady is. I don't know what kind of stuff she does. I don't know what kind of stuff she did for this. If I knew any other details, I could start making assumptions. But I mean, the fact that she said that, either she has very specific information that she knows, or she doesn't understand the context of what she made at all. So
I would say, like, if you're asked someone to make music they're gonna put into something, they're gonna immediately tell you what it is for. Kind of like what happened with Tony Hawk last year. That
Right.
a dude announced that they had made music that was going to show up in Tony Hawk before they revealed that it was Tony Hawk 1 and 2 Pro Skater. So
I think it is going to be the former rather than the latter. I don't know about this whole Christmas announcement though, because what I'm understanding it from this statement is that she did the work, and she's assuming, based on them saying this year, that it's got to be December. But as we know, goals to match certain times, especially in this time that we live in, is not accurate in the slightest. So it probably exists, probably real, whatever it is. Man, I don't even know what else there is that can be remade.
For PlayStation in particular, they have a massive library over in the PS1 and PS2 era. Massive, very niche stuff. And before the last week's news, I would have said, oh, is this when they're finally going to reveal Metal Gear Solid?
Yeah.
But after the Konami news, is like, yeah. And especially the Blue Point being like, yeah, our next project is not going to be a remake. It's going to be a new thing. So it's like, oh, well, there goes the idea for a remake now.
I don't want to keep my hopes up for this one too much, but if you had to pick one of those random remake, one of those original Sony properties to remake, what do you think you'd pick off the top of your head?
Everyone always asks for Legend of Dragoon, which is a very classic RPG from PS1 that was very like intrinsically tied with PlayStation. So maybe that one, because it's like so old. Like anything from that PS1 era. I mean, we did get Medieval. That was from PS1 like 2 years ago. It was decent.
That's true.
And it worked. It was a decent remake. That game's not very good, I'll say that, but I'm glad they did it because I got to experience it with as much modern code of paint as possible, but the gameplay of that game. Another game that made me grow white hair. I'll tell you that. But yeah, and Metal Gear would have been my thing. Like Metal Gear is like bar none my favorite series of all time, like as a franchise. And anything that can keep that series alive for me, it's always gonna be like priority number one. Other than that, I have no idea. I mean, we already got a reimagining coming for Twisted Metal. That would have been another one, but we already know that they're kind of working on that. So other than that, yeah, I'm at a loss.
If we got I mean, I've recently been on my Castlevania kick. If we got like a full-on Symphony of the Night remake, like ground up, I think that would be fantastic.
I mean, it already happened. It's called Bloodstain. I'm just kidding.
Stop it.
It's from the same creator. That's the thing. Bloodstain is from the creator of
I know.
Symphony of the Night.
It absolutely is. I just didn't vibe with the main character nearly as much.
And the 2.5D graphics.
Well, no, it was all right. It looked janky to me. I'm glad they improved it because people clearly didn't like that initial Kickstarter look, and it was an improvement. But,
took a long while to like the Kickstarter was like announced in 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
The game came out in 2019. It wasn't a Mighty Number 9 situation. That game. Did you ever play Mighty Number 9?
No, but I actually watched my roommate play it.
Man, that's like any old school Mega Man fan got their souls torn out by Mighty Number 9, especially coming from the creator of Mega Man. It's like that was tragic. And with that, and anything else you like to be remade that you know of? Because I can think of
Sly Cooper. I would go with that. I mean, Jak and Daxter still kind of holds up all right, so I don't know if I would.
And
have,
those
like,
games are available.
remake.
Like that's the thing. And those games are as a PS2 classic, so it can be they can be there.
Spyro's already been remade from the ground up. You know what? That Buzz Lightyear game.
Hopefully,
we gotta bring back the Buzz Lightyear game.
We should ask Disney, see if they care.
Remake Atlantis the Lost Empire, you cowards.
Yeah. So many classic Disney games from that era.
Yeah.
And with that, that's the end of the news for this week. As for games that are coming out this week, I have no idea. So nothing that stands out to me. Who knows? Maybe that's the thing. There are always games coming out, but it's not like games that we're actually super hyped about. I mean, I didn't end up buying Alan Wake remake because I was like, I had the 360 version, and from what I looked, it was like they didn't do much other than up-res it. So I was like, maybe I can just play through the 360 version then and wait for a sale on the other one. So, and now that we're done with the news, for video and audio listeners of the full show, we are transitioning over to what have we been playing. As for us, everyone that watched this news segment, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next for for the individual what have we been playing. Paul, it's been a pleasure, and remember,
always press X
to play.
Adios, everyone.